Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the renowned Dr. Helen Caldicott to the show today because so many of us are deeply concerned about the radioactive waste being emitted from Japan and the meltdown that's happening in 4 nuclear reactors. I want to tell you a little bit about her if you don't know about her. First of all, she has been an anti-nuclear activist and educator for over 38 years and has led an international campaign to educate the public about the medical hazards of the nuclear age. She is a doctor. She founded the Cystic Fibrosis Clinic at the Adelaide Children's Hospital many years ago. She was an instructor in pediatrics at the Harvard Medical School and on staff at the Children's Hospital Medical Center. She co-founded Physicians for Social Responsibility, a marvelous organization of 23,000 doctors committed to educating their colleagues about the dangers of nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and nuclear war. She's written over 7 books. She has contributed to so many lectures and educational events, done workshops, and educated people both in front of and behind the scenes. You may have heard of her book, If You Love This Planet, A Plan to Save the Earth, that became very popular all over the world. She also has another book you should pick up called Nuclear Madness. I want you to listen carefully to Dr. Caldicott. I want you to hear the distinctions between alpha and beta, internal emitters, and radiobiology. I want you to be on your toes. We have a short time, and having Helen Caldicott in a short segment is like having a planet move through the eye of a needle. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome Dr. Helen Caldicott to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Thank you.
The first thing I'd like to ask you is, do you agree when Michio Kaku says that the nuclear reactors, which are in a meltdown state in Japan, should be entombed with sand, boric acid, and concrete and completely buried? That's how urgent it is. Do you agree with that remedy at this point?
Michio knows what he's talking about. He's a very eminent physicist. He developed the string theory, and I've worked with him for years and years, or spoken with him on platforms. But I've been speaking to a nuclear engineer who said that that the reactor cores are still contained in their containment vessels, and one keeps getting critical. Number 1, there's been a 70% meltdown, but it's still going critical and releasing very short-lived isotopes and releasing beams of neutrons, which means it's going critical. Now, if you bury those reactor cores, and there are 6 of them, in concrete and boron and lead and the like, it's not going to stop necessarily the reactions within the core itself and the containment vessel. Now, I'm not a nuclear engineer, but I spoke to Annie Gunderson, who is, and he pointed that out to me. But who am I to dispute what Michio says? So really, I'm only a physician, so I'm not really sure.
I would like you to give the public a frame of reference why the internal emitters of radiation are so important, and why are they being dismissed?
Oh, well, they're being dismissed by the nuclear industry because they don't know what they're talking about, or they're lying, either one or the other. Now, there are 5 sorts of radiation. There are X-rays, and you've all had X-rays. You mustn't. All radiation is cumulative. Each dose you receive adds to your risk of getting cancer. Never have an unnecessary X-ray. Do not have your teeth X-rayed every year because it all adds to the risk. Don't walk through X-ray machines at airports. They're dangerous. They're radiating a whole population of people, which is really unscrupulous medically. Then there's gamma radiation given off by radioactive materials such as those at Fukushima. They go straight through your body. They only damage you in that instant that they go through your body. They don't affect you. They don't stay with you or make you radioactive, but they can mutate a gene in your eggs and sperm to cause genetic disease in future generations, or they can mutate a regulatory gene in a cell in the body, and the cell sits quietly for about 5 to 60 years, the incubation time for cancer, and then one day it goes really mad and divides into trillions of cells, and that's a cancer. So it takes a a single gene damaged in a single cell to kill you. Now, there's alpha radiation, and that's particulate. It's composed of 2 protons and 2 neutrons, which are emitted from an unstable atom like plutonium or like uranium. Plutonium is getting out of these reactors. You can hold plutonium in the palm of your hand, and the alpha particle won't penetrate the layers of dead skin in the epidermis to damage living cells. However, because it only travels short distance, if you inhale plutonium and it goes into your lung, it irradiates a tiny volume of cells which get a huge dose. Most die, and those on the periphery survive because they get a lesser dose, and they can be mutated, their regulatory gene, to later form cancer. As plutonium is like iron, it is handled like iron by the body and transferred from the lung by macrophages, their white blood cells, to the lymph nodes in the chest where it can induce lymphoma by mutation. It is stored in the liver where it can cause liver cancer. It goes to the bone where hemoglobin is made, where it can cause bone cancer or leukemia. It has a predilection for the testicles, so it deposits just next to the cells that form the sperm, the spermatogonia. So it can induce testicular cancer and or genetic diseases that are passed on generation to generation, like cystic fibrosis, diabetes, phenylketonuria, and there are 2,600 such diseases now described. And it also crosses the placenta into the developmentally normal embryo, where it can kill a cell that's going to form the left arm or the right part of the brain and the like. And that's what thalidomide did. When pregnant women took it, babies were being born with no arms or no legs and the like. That's called teratogenesis, damage of a normal, genetically, chromosomally normal fetus. I'm talking now about internal emitters that get into your body as compared to external radiation like X-rays and gamma rays. Then there are beta emitters. They're just electrons emitted from an unstable nucleus. Now, if you swallow or inhale plutonium, strontium-90, cesium-137, radioactive iodine, cerium, technetium, carbon-14, tritium, there are 200 radioactive materials in these reactors, some very short-lived and some last millions of years. If you get them in your body, the whole body doesn't get anything, but the cells surrounding that particle, like the plutonium I just described, right? They get a whopping dose of radiation. They're internal emitters. So people in Fukushima are running around with Geiger counters measuring the gamma radiation, which is being emitted by some of these isotopes. For instance, cesium-137 emits beta, an electron, plus the gamma radiation. I-131, iodine, emits beta and the gamma radiation. So they're measuring only gamma, which is only sort of an estimate of, it's sort of like looking at the skin of a person who's anemic and you can see they're pale, but you haven't looked at their blood picture to see exactly what's going on in their blood or in the bone marrow. You really have no idea. And that's the same thing. And then the industry is downplaying internal emitters and saying they're not even talking about them. They're talking about the external radiation. So either the industry doesn't know what it's talking about medically, it doesn't understand radiopathology, or it's lying. Now, all radiation is cumulative. It is true. Each dose you receive, whether it's from an X-ray or from gamma radiation for the poor people at Fukushima who are trying to save those reactors or prevent more damage being done, or the people living nearby, or if you ingest or inhale plutonium or cesium or strontium and the like, it all adds to your risk of getting cancer.
What do you think about the doctors connected to the nuclear industry that have said whatever's coming in from Japan to the United States is no more than the kind of radiation you would get flying in your plane? Do you believe that?
Well, it's not belief. This isn't a belief. It's about science. Now, the radiation you get is cosmic radiation when you fly in a plane, and yes, you do get some. But that's external radiation again. The whole body is getting a very, very low dose of radiation, whereas the materials that are